All knowledge needs a starting point to get off the ground. Axioms form the basis of all other knowledge. So the definition of an axiom is a self-evident truth that requires no proof, a universally accepted principle or rule, a proposition in logic or mathematics that is assumed without proof for the sake of studying the consequences that follow from it. Axioms, then, are fixed principles upon which we can always take a righteous stand. Without some fixed starting point of knowledge that we can then build upon, we end up with a never-ending loop called an infinite regress. An infinite regress is a never-ending series of causation, a sequence of reasoning that can never come to an end. Perhaps the most famous example of an infinite regress is the question, which came first, the chicken or the egg? The chicken-egg dilemma comes from the observation that all chickens hatch from eggs, and all chicken eggs are laid by chickens. Another example of an infinite regress in theology is the question, who created the Creator? Well then, you could ask, who created the creator of the creator? And so on. Regarding this never-ending series of questions, Brigham Young counseled us, think, brethren, think, but do not think so far that you cannot think back again. So axioms are the irreducible, invincible, and inescapable starting points of all knowledge. The objectivist philosopher Ayn Rand said, an axiomatic concept is the identification of a primary fact of reality, which cannot be analyzed, reduced to other facts, or broken into component parts. It is implicit in all facts and in all knowledge. It is the fundamentally given and directly perceived or experienced, which requires no proof or explanation, but upon which all proofs and explanations rest. Leonard Peikoff further described how axiomatic concepts are starting points of knowledge, on which all proofs depend. They must be used and accepted by everyone, including those who attack them. An axiom is a proposition that defeats its opponents by the fact that they have to accept it and use it in the process of any attempt to deny it. There are simply three axioms that form the basis of all other knowledge. In the Lectures on Faith, originally published in 1835, Joseph Smith described them in a theological context. He said, "How many things are necessary for us to understand respecting the deity and our relation to Him, in order that we may exercise faith in Him for life and salvation? 3. What are they? First, that God does exist. This is what we call the existence axiom. Secondly, correct ideas of His character, His perfections, and attributes. This is what we call the identity axiom. And thirdly, that course which we pursue is according to His mind and will. This is what we call the consciousness axiom." Most philosophers start with doubt. With the eternalism axioms, we start with certainty. The axioms are always there, can always be relied upon. Of these axioms, nothing more can be said of them than existence exists, consciousness is conscious, and everything has specific identifying attributes. Axiomatic concepts are epistemological starting points. They sum up the essence of all human cognition. Something exists, of which I am conscious. I must discover its identity. Consciousness requires identification. These axioms are implicit in all facts and in all knowledge. It is something, and I'm aware of it. The three axioms are inherent in all facts, such as when describing any perceptual object. For example, the hot cocoa. It is, I'm aware of it, it is something with attributes. Same with the camera. It is, I'm aware of it, it is something with attributes. Also with toys. It is, I'm aware of it, it is something with attributes. In other words, something exists, I am conscious of it, and I must identify its attributes. The three axioms are inherent in all knowledge, even in non-perceptual objects. The axioms are assumed in all thoughts, feelings, and actions. For example, when thinking of God, He exists, I am conscious of it, and He has specific attributes that differentiate Him from all other beings. The axioms are present in every emotion, such as love. It exists, I am conscious of it, and love has specific attributes that make it different from other emotions, such as hate. The axioms are present in every action, such as running. Running exists, I am aware of it, and it has specific attributes that differentiate it from other actions, such as sleeping. The axioms are irreducible, invincible, and inescapable. To show an example of this, consider person A and person B arguing. Let's call them Adam and Bob. Bob says to Adam, "You can't prove that you exist, or that you're conscious, or that anything is what it is." Who is Bob actually arguing with? I will go through a role play to show that Bob is actually arguing with himself, because trying to disprove the axioms naturally invokes what is called affirmation through denial. Aristotle first described how it is logically impossible to both affirm and deny at the same time. Using Aristotle's logical principle of affirmation through denial, critics are forced to affirm a negation of their own argument. An axiom is a proposition that defeats its opponents by the fact that they have to accept it and use it in the process of any attempt to deny it. The following role-play will show that existence, consciousness, and identity are presupposed by every statement and by every concept, including the concept of disagreement. In this example, person A, Adam, is showing person B, Bob, that no one can object to the axioms without actually using the axioms in their objections. Adam does this by arguing the absurd, using Aristotle's affirmation through denial. Adam begins by saying to Bob, "Your objection to the self-evident has no validity. There's no such thing as disagreement. People agree about everything." Bob says to Adam, "That's absurd. People disagree constantly about all kinds of things." Adam says, "How can they? There's nothing to disagree about. After all, nothing exists." Bob replies, "Nonsense. All kinds of things exist. You know that as well as I do." Adam says, "Ah, that's one. You must accept the existence axiom to even utter the term disagreement." But to continue, "I still claim that disagreement is unreal. How can people disagree, since they are all unconscious beings unable to hold ideas at all?" Bob replies, "Of course people hold ideas. They are conscious beings. You know that." Adam says, "Ah, that's two. You must be conscious in order to disagree." But even so, why is disagreement about ideas a problem? Perhaps all of the people who disagree about the very same point are all both equally right. Bob replies, "That's impossible. If two ideas contradict each other, they can't both be right." Adam replies, "Ah, that's three. Contradictions can't exist in reality. All things have identity." The objectivists correctly state that axiomatic concepts are the guardians of man's mind and the foundation of reason, the keystone, touchstone, and hallmark of reason. And if reason is to be destroyed, it is axiomatic concepts that have to be destroyed. By debunking these axiomatic concepts, you debunk all philosophies along with any quest for wisdom in one fell swoop. In short, without these axiomatic concepts, philosophy becomes fruitless and pointless as it has no way to get off the ground. There are a lot of bad philosophies out there. All the bad ones try to undercut the axioms. Once you understand this, you are able to debunk it, and a lot of philosophical nonsense disappears. Axioms keep us out of an infinite black hole of mystic ideas. An easy way to remember how to debunk this is what the objectivist Ayn Rand called the stolen concept fallacy. A fallacy is a mistaken belief based on unsound argument. A stolen concept is a logical fallacy attempting to use a concept as proof against itself. They can't both use something to deny itself. Consider a metaphor of a philosophical barrel that sums up everything we have learned so far. The contents represent all 5 branches of philosophy, that is, metaphysics, epistemology, ethics, politics, and aesthetics. Plus, it contains all of our philosophical primacy issues that we described previously. The question is, what is the bottom of the barrel? The philosophical axioms are the bottom of the philosophical barrel, that is, existence, consciousness, and identity. Every credible philosophy or theology, including eternalism, must start somewhere. No philosophy can hold water without these philosophical axioms. If you knock the bottom of the barrel out by denying any one of these 3 axioms, all philosophy, including all of your primacy issues, all fall away. The axioms are irreducible in the sense that these axioms are at the very bottom of the barrel. There is nothing beneath it to lend it support. They're invincible in the sense that they have their own built-in self-defense. Epistemologically, it's impossible to knock the bottom of the barrel out without reaffirming its validity. They are inescapable in that they are necessarily presupposed in every thought, word, feeling, action, belief, or testimony being born. You cannot say that Jesus is the Christ or the Book of Mormon is true without these axioms being used. Almost all bad philosophies end up being an attack on one or more of the 3 axioms. Just like the debate between Adam and Bob, illogical philosophers blank out the fact that proof presupposes existence, consciousness, and a whole complex chain of identifiable knowledge. Now that you are aware of the axioms, they will greatly simplify your detection of bad ideas. Let's do some practice using the axioms. The Greek philosopher Heraclitus said, "Nothing exists, everything is change. No man ever steps into the same river twice." Do you see any problems with this philosophical statement? The problem is, an attack on the existence of the river is also an attack on the existence of everything else. If you destroy the river by changing it to flux, you also must destroy everything else that changes, including the man, because the contents of man's mind also changes. The question is, how can something change if it doesn't first exist? The French philosopher René Descartes said, "Cogito ergo sum." I think, therefore I am. What do you think of René Descartes' statement? Let's do some word replacement to make it clearer. In order to even utter the word I, what assumptions are present? Let's replace a few words with their full meaning. I assumes I exist. Otherwise, who's doing the talking? Think assumes conscious. Otherwise, who's doing the thinking? I am is the same thing as saying I exist, which was already implied in the premise. Therefore, Descartes' statement could read, I exist, I am conscious, therefore I exist. What Descartes was trying to say is the fact that he is conscious, able to think, proves he exists. The problem is a tautology, which is circular reasoning. Circular reasoning is a logical fallacy in which the premise is identical to the conclusion. Let's go back to our discussion from the beginning of this module where we discussed the infinite regress problem of the chicken or the egg. A more clear way of thinking about this problem is viewing it as a primacy issue. Ask yourself the question, does potential or actual have primacy, and why does it matter? From an axiomatic perspective, actual has primacy over potential. That is, something must actually exist before it can accomplish any potential ends. Therefore, a chicken can lay an egg, but an egg can't yet lay a chicken. Thank you for watching this video. Please subscribe to the Christian Eternalism YouTube channel and visit www.christianeternalism.org.